Hi everybody! Today we are going to use a template and create variation with personality. I originally created several templates, one for women, one for dogs, other for cats, even one for florals. But as the video was getting too long, I ended up using only the template for the groups of men. We are saving the other ideas for future videos, okay? But the important takeaway here is that this concept is versatile. You can apply it to anything and any theme that you like, as long as you follow a few basic principles. We begin by making a simple template. Just use a thick paper, draw a basic shape, and then cut it out. It's simple like that. From there, you can use the template to mark where you want the faces to appear. You can also use this template for compositions with a single face, and then use different color for skin and backgrounds in individualized compositions. However, for the purpose of this exercise, we are going for a pattern-like style, okay? We are going to explore 4 slightly different styles and techniques today. Hopefully, one of them will resonate with you to the point of convincing you to go create your own, okay? We start by painting the faces flat. It is important to be economical with your color choices. Too many and the composition can become chaotic, and this is just not good, okay? A good rule of thumb is to use no more than 4 or 5 colors. And since I'm working with colored paper, I'm painting the faces using only 4 colors here. The key is to ensure that none of the same colors overlap. It just doesn't look good when they do, okay? I'm quite mindful about where I place each color. This first style uses flat colors only. There are no outlines or details. Facial features are suggested through texture. So once the first layer is dry, I apply a second layer using the same color just to define or refine the facial features, okay? Keep in mind that acrylics darken as they dry, so even if it looks like a lighter hue at first, it is actually the same mix. Adding a second layer gives the faces a rich, interesting texture. From afar, they appear as flat blocks of color, but as you get closer, subtle details begin to emerge. So for the second composition, the approach is quite similar, but we'll be adding more facial details. I'll incorporate a few more colors to define features such as eyes, noses, and mouths, but the underlying concept remains the same. Flat colored faces with details added once the paint is dry, okay? It's a very straightforward process, and if you're someone who struggles with portraiture, this technique can actually help you, because I'm going to say it as many times as it's necessary, okay? Art is not only about talent or technique or anything, it's about intention. Intentionality makes all the difference in portrait work. Make it deliberate. If you cannot make precise features, make it deliberate. Make it exactly how you want it to be. I've added contrast to the facial features. And again, my main focus is ensuring the skin tones don't overlap. It helps maintain clarity and harmony. Also, some of you have made comments about my sideways painting. So this time I'm trying to keep the work vertical to make it easier for everyone to follow along, okay? You can certainly paint just one face in this style using different background colors. It still creates a very compelling and cohesive composition. Personally, I enjoy this grouped format better because it is interesting to see the variation of skin tones and colors, in the same arrangement. Now, if at any point you feel the colors are becoming too busy, you can always unify the composition by using a unifying color. In this example here, I'm using burnt umber for small details across all the characters. Adding just a touch of burnt umber to each figure brings a sense of unity. And when it comes to color harmony, if your colors aren't naturally in the same family, try mixing a hint of one unifying color into each one. So here, every color, the blues, the reds, the yellows, even the whites, contain a bit of burnt umber. That's why, even though they are quite different, they all sit well together. The shared pigment ties them into the same palette. For the third composition, I'm using white acrylic paper with a canvas texture. The purpose here is to show how different the result can look when working on a white background. The concept remains the same, but the technique shifts a bit. This time, I'll paint each figure using a single base color. So I'm using the same color to add the shadows and highlights to that particular figure, okay? I am also adding a fantasy element by using non-natural skin tones, which will hopefully add visual interest. And again, these are still simple flat images. The darker areas are where I apply more concentrated paint, and the lighter sections is where I mix with water. So although I'm working with acrylics, I have treated them almost like watercolors, thinning them with water to make them more translucent. Okay. Just as before, I'm using a unifying color. In this case, yellow. Every character will contain a touch of yellow, tying them all together into a single cohesive group. And finally, the last composition leans more towards abstraction, okay? I'll paint fewer characters this time, just enough to demonstrate the concept. I start once again by using the template to mark the positions, and once those are in place, I begin painting. But this time I am using a thick round brush, typically used for wall painting. And the reason for that is that I want to create a bold texture because this version is more abstract. So I am aiming for a more expressive, dramatic result. And this brush is just perfect if that's what you're looking for. Once again, I'm using non-naturalistic colors for the characters, which adds visual interest. Each figure begins with a single base color, and once the base is dry, I blend in small amounts of other colors. For instance, I add some red into the blue, blue into the yellow, and so on. This subtle color blending ties the characters together, creating cohesion. And once again, we're back to the importance of intentionality. Even in abstract work, being deliberate makes a world of difference. Of course, you can let the artwork guide you. It doesn't have to match your original vision exactly. In fact, what I ended up with here wasn't quite what I initially had in mind. I envisioned something more polished, but because I wanted to create 10 to 15 pieces, remember, I wanted to paint dogs, women, cats, and everything. So I decided to work quickly, otherwise, it would take me an entire week. As a result, the first piece came out quite raw, and I liked the result. So I followed that path, okay? And these are the results of what we've done today. I hope you've learned something new today and that this inspires you to make some art yourself. You can work as I did, grouping the characters together, or create compositions using just one or two. Either way, I think it can produce very compelling pieces. As always, keep on practicing and thank you for joining us.